Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We are going to start in around, I don't know, hopefully 5 minutes. Just bear with us. Someone important is not with us yet. I don't know when they'll come back. Someone called KG. Apologies. Okay, thank you. Update to everyone. This important person called KG is now like with us. He will be here in 2 minutes. And hopefully now we will start the presentation. Okay, thank you once again. Apologies.
Hi everyone, I apologize for being late. I was caught up in something else. I guess we could begin. Can someone else share the screen? And we can begin. Yes, thank you, owner. Okay, applying to universities. We can start, right? We can start, right? Okay, so applying to universities. Hi everyone. So for today's session, we'll go through applying to universities in a number of different countries overseas. We'll start with US university applications, and then we'll go through UK and European universities, and then Australian and New Zealand universities. And then afterwards, we'll answer previously sent questions. And if we have time, we'll go and answer a live question. Yes. So we have four hosts for today. Some of us will be doing some of the countries because some of us are applied to certain different countries, so we'll be able to give you better advice. I'm KG. I'll be doing a degree in international affairs in Georgetown University in Qatar next month, and we are joined by Fire as well. He'll be doing aerospace engineering at UIUC in the United States. Viper is also with us today. He'll be doing electrical engineering at the University of Manchester in September. and we have Lee or yes, Airkupung. I don't know how to pronounce that. You can also call her Lee. She'll be doing history and French at the University of Cambridge.
I guess I'll just introduce myself. So, I completed, I just completed one IGCSE subject officially, but I prepared for nine, and I moved to the US in between my high school career, so I couldn't write all of my IGCSEs, and I did the advanced placement curriculum for the rest of my high school journey, and I've taken 7 subjects in AP, and I've scored 4 5s and 3 4s, and it's out of 5. And I applied to 9 universities, all in the US, and I got it to 6.
Okay, to briefly introduce myself, I did 6 IGCSE subjects in 2021, and afterwards I proceeded to do my A levels. So first I did my AS in 3 subjects: history, psychology, and economics. And then I continued to do my final exams in November last year in the same subjects. I applied to 60 universities in the US. I will share more on why I did this, mostly in the US. And I also applied to a lot of universities in Australia and New Zealand. And I did get into all of those since they have published entry requirements. I got accepted into 17 of those US applications. However, I only considered a few of those. Again, I'll provide more context later. And I chose Georgetown, which I will also mention later. We can move on.
Okay, so I completed 10 IGCSEs in those subjects and received 3 stars, 5 A's, 1 B, and 1 C. Currently, I'm doing Cambridge AS A2 level. At AS, I did 4 subjects and got 3 A's and 1 D. I got into 4 of my 5 universities in the UK, and yeah.
All right, she's not here, so we're just gonna move on. Okay, so this applies for any country you're applying to, but um, I would say family and a career counselor are the most important people you should consider when choosing where you want to go for college. And it's really good to take advice of current or former college students, just so you know how about their experience in their country and if you really want to attend that college. And you should be realistic. You should know what you're achieving and make your choices based on that. So if you're like an average student, you shouldn't just apply to like all Ivy League schools. Like just be realistic. And then the last point is reach, match, and safety universities. So you should apply to universities that have that you know you're going to get into. So some that are easy to get into, and then some you know you have like a 50% chance of getting into, and then some which is like lucky if you get into, but you want to apply for them anyways. Okay, so we can just go over some key terms, which these are important in the US. GPA you might have heard of. It's out of 4, and it's basically like a summary of your entire grade, in college. And SAT, a lot of you might be doing. It's highly recommended if you are applying to the US. And it has English and math. And there's another thing called the ACT, which is the same thing, but it has a science component. Early action and regular decision. So early action is to be applied by November 1st, which or November 15th. It depends on the college, but it's generally around that period. And regular decision is when you apply later, which is around Jan 1st for most schools. And AP, which is the program I did, it's offered by the same company that does the SAT. And IB, a lot of you might be doing that too. So early decision is like a special case. It's mainly for like Ivy League schools. but it's basically if you're basically committing to the university if you apply by November 1st. So if you get in, you have to go there. And then this is kind of like a weird one, but people call college as school over here. Like call instead of college and university, I might just say school instead. KJ, you want to go ahead for this?
Yes, sure, sure. So factors which are considered in your application, at least for US universities, the most important part is still academics. I know some people say that other parts of the application, such as extracurriculars, everything else you can see on the screen. But I would still argue that academics or the GPA is the most important. Now, if you come from a British curriculum or an IB curriculum, you do not have to convert your scores or your grades into GPA. The university will do it if they need to. A lot of universities don't, and they'll just consider your application in the context of your high school curriculum, which is if it's British, then it's IGCSEs and A levels, or IGCSEs and IBs. So I would say that's the most important. Unlike the UK, the US does not actually give you any minimum entry requirement or recommended entry requirement. However, for more competitive universities, more competitive majors or programs, including Ivy League schools, MIT, Stanford, etc., they do look for straight A's and A stars. Do matter in that regard. Extracurricular activities are also something that US universities and colleges look for. They like to see involvement outside of the classroom. So they like you to, volunteer and have awards and honors and stuff like that. But the most important thing is to present yourself in a way that really encompasses all of the activities that you do. So they don't just want you to study, they actually want you to actually do other things outside the classroom. SAT scores are still optional for a lot of universities, but I would still recommend if you are an international applicant, please take the SAT because most successful applicants into like good US universities, they actually do submit the SAT. Now, I did go test optional, but I recommend everyone to take the SAT and actually submit it as well. Um, Essays and personal statements, yes. So the US universities do ask for an essay. So the main application portal is known as the Common App, and they will ask you to write a 650-word essay. So this essay is not like the personal statement that you write for UK or European universities. It's more about it can be any other topic. They don't really want to see why you're interested in that subject or in that course that you're interested in. They would want to see something from your daily life, something else. It can be it's like a personal essay. It can be anything, but it must be personal and only you must be able to write it. That's the general guideline that is given. No? And then from there you can actually write just about anything, and it's really up to you. But I do recommend, getting it reviewed and checked by your teachers and peers as well. As long as you trust your peers, the ones that they share it to, because you can't copy it. It's the same as the UK. Uh, Letters of recommendation. Yes, you need 1 to 2 letters of recommendation for teachers. So they have to like vouch for you. They have to like recommend you to the universities and colleges. Plus a counselor report. Now the counselor report is basically another letter of recommendation, but it also includes stuff about your school, like how they do the grading, how they do the marking. There's something called a screw profile that may that uni might ask for. So counselor has to give like context on like stuff like how the grading is done in your school, how many students apply to overseas universities, how the school basically functions, so that the admissions team can basically look at you in the context of your school, in the context of your peers, in the context of everything around you. So it's more of a holistic application. This is something you will not see in other countries. That makes the US application process quite unique, but it does make it a lot more competitive since they look at multiple factors, not just academics, which they do in other countries for the most part. Now, optional is any extenuating circumstances. You can choose to elaborate on this in your personal essay, or you can actually, there is like an additional information section. And there is even a COVID-19 section, which I think they still have for next year, but I'm not too sure on that. So they have like additional sections where it's like a free form box where you can actually talk about any circumstances any difficulties that you might have faced. So any medical issue, for example, or any personal, any family related, things that have might have affected your grades or your ability to participate in activities outside the classroom. So you are free to elaborate on anything like this as well. So if you would like more information on what exactly you could mention, you could look online to see what might be recommended. So it's more of a free form type of area. Now, another thing to note is that financial aid, if you need financial aid, is basically funding which the university gives you, which is based on your family's financial circumstances. So, just because in the US the tuition fee is quite high, and if you can prove that you cannot afford the full tuition fee, you are eligible for something known as financial aid. This is more of a private university thing. Public universities do not really provide financial aid. It is only reserved for domestic or American citizens or permanent residents, I believe. You can apply for something known as the FAFSA, but if you are an international applicant, private universities do provide financial aid. But if you do apply for it, that will actually be a factor in the decision. So it's known as need aware admissions. So if you do apply for this financial aid, your chances of getting in will be less. So it makes it a lot more competitive if you need that funding. There is an exception. Universities such as Harvard or MIT, Princeton, Yale, these universities are actually need blind. So they don't look at it. They don't look at your financial status because they actually have quite a lot of funding available. But your application must be at that level where they will accept you. So if you have 4 A stars in A level, that is not enough. You will need to supplement it with a whole range of other things. So it is still very competitive, at least at the more higher ranked or more competitive programs. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Academics and test scores. Now, your school coursework does count, so it's not just your test scores or your final exam certificates. Internals may matter too. You could just submit the external IGCSE and A-level certificates, which is what I did. But if your school policy mandates that you submit the internals, then your internal must be good as well. And your counselor must explain how the grading works in your high school so that the admissions counselors basically, understand what they're seeing on their screen, the transcripts. So your school counselor will also submit the transcripts, not just the recommendation letter, the counselor report. So that also includes your transcripts, basically your copies of your certificates and copies of your internal if the school asks you or kind of asks you to do that. So you kind of have to give it to your counselor to let them upload, or you can do it with them as well. Uh, so make sure you are a competitive student. Now, Farah did mention this. There is something known as a common data set, which you can actually find online. So this common data set, you can just search. So, for example, if you want to find the common data set for Princeton, so you can just search Princeton common data set, and then inside that there will be like average SAT score. So SAT score within 1450 to 1500. So if you fall within this range, or if your score is actually higher than what they state, then you might be it's more like an indication that you might be more competitive, but there is no strict entry requirement. So if you have straight A's and A stars, and your SAT score falls within that range or it's higher, then academically you are a competitive applicant, but there are still many other factors. So it does become competitive. So if you are academically competitive, I would say you could put in an application. If you feel that you are not as academically competitive, you can choose to apply or you can choose not to apply. So you will have to decide based on these indications. I know in the UK and Australia, they will basically publish the entry requirements. So if you don't meet that, you don't have to apply. You will not lose out the slot because you know that you may or may not get in. So if you feel that you are competitive, then just go ahead and apply if you feel like it. Which is why it becomes a lot more competitive. So you can actually apply to more colleges compared to the UK, which limits you to 5. The US, you can apply to 20 or even more if you use other portals other than the common application. So it does become more competitive. Now, if your IGCSE grades are a bit lower, you can, if you improve your A levels or IB, you can show that upward trend in your grades. That is positive. Like even for me, I would say my A level grades, I did try my best to show that upward trend. So if you are in that sort of situation, universities in the US do like that aspect when you actually continually improve yourself and show an upward trend. So they actually like that a lot. That's part of their holistic admissions procedure. Most universities are test optional, but some universities are now test mandatory. I would say even if it's test optional, we would still recommend that you take the SAT. There is something known as the ACT, which is equivalent to the SAT. So you can take the ACT rather than the SAT if you want. Both of them are equivalent. You can take one or the other. You don't have to take both. If you score well on APs or IB higher levels or A levels, you could get advanced credit. You don't have to take certain courses. So I am able to get some credit from my university as well. So you are able to get this, but this depends on the policy that the college has. So some unis like mine mandate that you must get an A, or else you won't get any advanced standing or credit. But some unis might say if you get a B or a C, you will still get some credit. So some unis you can even get up to half a year or even more worth of credit, but it will really depends on their individual policy. Yep. Okay, in a broad scale, there are two types of scholarships. One is need-based, which I mentioned, which is based on your family income and other circumstances. Some countries may provide a scholarship or a bond to study abroad, but you would need to come back. This exists in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, and a few other countries. They do have stuff like this. Um, but that would require a separate admissions procedure that is specific to your country. There is another one which is merit based, so it really depends on your good academic performance. This tends to be more common in the US because even the unis which don't give need based aid, they would still give you merit based aid because merit based aid they don't look at your financial funding, they just look at your academics in most cases. Some merit scholarship look at everything else other than your financial status. So they look at your essays, they look at your recommendations, they look at your extracurriculars, they look at your academics, and then based on all that, based on that holistic procedure, they would award you a merit scholarship. And then they might award some need-based financial aid if you are eligible for it and if you get in. But the more prestigious universities, if you do get in with funding, they would basically cover it completely with your need-based funding. You are automatically considered for merit based for most universities, but the need based you would need to apply for it. So even if you can pay fully, you don't need the need based financial aid. You can just apply, and in most cases, they will automatically deduct a certain amount as a merit based scholarship, which is a really good thing because I think they want to incentivize students, and they also acknowledge that the fees are not in a lot of private universities, they don't actually pay the fees that they advertise. It is actually a lot lower because a lot of students get scholarships. In public universities, it's more so that they give less merit-based scholarships. So, for example, the University of California system, they give very limited scholarships because there is a lot of demand, um, and most people would pay the sticker price, which is on the website. But some universities may want to attract students, so they might. But my point stands is that merit-based scholarships are a lot more common. Need-based is a lot more difficult and competitive. So if you apply regular decision, there is a lower chance because the early action or the early application, there is more funding available. If you apply regular or a bit later, your chances are a lot lower, I would say.
Yeah, if you're wondering why the public universities don't give as much, it's mainly because they want to incentivize the students within their state to come to
Yes.
the university rather than people from international.
Okay, need-based financial aid is only offered by private universities. Public universities, as Fire mentioned, they only prioritize those in their state. So actually, if you're in a public university, if for example in Michigan, they would only the fees for people who are like in Michigan is a lot lower than out of state. So out of state also applies to international. Now, a need-based financial aid is only offered by private universities and colleges. A lot of liberal arts colleges also do provide this need-based financial aid. If you do decide to apply for financial aid, it will decrease your chances in most cases, except for those few unis like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Dartmouth, Brown, MIT, Amherst, where it doesn't affect. But in those type of unis, it makes it extremely competitive. There are some American branch campuses like Georgetown, which is the one I'm going to attend, CMU, and NYU Abu Dhabi, where it is also kind of need blind because the funding is like from an external source, which is the foundations in the UAE and Qatar. But other than that, it it is quite competitive. So the best way to go about this is to like have a talk with your family. If you cannot afford the full cost of attendance, or the average fees start at around 30,000 to 40,000 dollars for certain public universities, and at privates it can go up to $90,000 a year, US dollars per year. So if you feel that you don't reach that threshold, if you feel that you need the financial aid, then apply for it. Otherwise, do not apply, so as to leave funding for those who need it. A lot of strategies that a lot of people do is that when you apply to public university, you can just apply. You don't need to apply for the aid. Usually, the fees are lower than private, and those same people who apply to private universities, they will apply for financial aid because they need a part of it to to get the fees down to what it might cost at a public university. So for public unis, you can just straight away apply. You could get the offer. It's just that the funding aspect is up to you to decide. This is the same in UK and Australia. But private universities offer this need-based aid. But if you apply for it, it basically decreases your chances of getting in. I hope that is clear. It might be a bit confusing, but I hope it's clear.
Okay, so let's talk about extracurriculars. So this is actually like a big part of your application. And they can be anything. If it's volunteering, sports, even if it's academic related, it's anything you do besides your school time. So what you can do, you can get involved. You can do volunteering. I'm sure there's like a lot of volunteering opportunities in your area, and these can be related to your major. So if you're applying for a CS, um, for a CS major, you could potentially teach like middle school kids how to code, the basics of code, or something like that, and that looks really good on your application because it's related to your major. And if you can't do extracurriculars, if you have to take care of a sibling and if your parents are at work, that is also counted as an extracurricular. And the university understands that, because if you don't have the time and you have to take care of a family member, then that's what you have to do. And then on the Common App, you have to enter how many hours per week you're going to be doing that particular extracurricular and how many weeks per year. So basically, they want to get an idea of how consistent you are and whether or not you're actually like properly doing it, or if it's just like a one-off thing and um, it doesn't really influence your character. So for essays, when you apply using the Common App, you have to write a 650-word personal statement, and they give you a list of prompts that you can write about. But essentially, you can write about anything you want, but the only thing that it should be related to you and your personality. So it should, if you had like a specific moment in your life that um you think you want to share, anything that reflects your character the best, that'll be really helpful if you share that. So this takes a lot of time. I spent like 3 months on all my essays, and yeah, I shared it with family members, with my cousins, my relatives, my friends, all of that. It was really helpful to have that opportunity to be able to share it and get feedback. And then some universities, most universities are really competitive. They have additional essays which they require, and you got to make sure you put these up. You have time to finish these as well, because all these should be, edited and perfected many times. So the most common prompts you can get for these additional essays are why this major. Basically, the university wants to know why you have your interest and what are you doing right now to engage with this interest. So if it, like for me, if I'm interested in aerospace engineering, why am I interested in aerospace engineering and what am I doing right now? Like aviation or aerospace related. and then why this university. So they want to know why you are going to be a good fit for the university and why the university is a good fit for you. So um, I feel like for this prompt, you have to do a lot of research. You should research about what the university has, like specific opportunities, what they have. Um, and you shouldn't just mention things like, oh, the campus is pretty, or um, it is a high status, I guess. Because like if you're applying for the Ivies and you talk about how prestigious they are, they aren't gonna care about your application because that's not what they're here to look at. You can search for like research opportunities that the university provides. That's a really good thing to mention on your application. And be specific. That's the last thing I would say. Um, you can be as specific as you want, and the more specific you are, the the university counselor knows that you've done your research and you really are interested. Okay, so that is a recommendation. Basically, these are written by adults that know your qualities and contributions during your high school career, and it can be anyone. It doesn't have to be a teacher at school. Um, it should not be a parent or someone close to you because obviously there's going to be bias in that way. But yeah, uh, anyone who knows your character really well and you trust, you can ask them. You should ask them to write your letter of recommendation. So this is kind of weird, but some universities, like the one I'm going to UIUC, they do not want a letter of recommendation. They just don't consider it as a factor in your application process. So make sure you research that before you submit a letter of recommendation to any university. It's recommended you do about 3 letters and from different people. Maybe one is from a teacher, one is from an extracurricular that you do, and then one is from, someone else. But it should be from the 3 different people and not just all in the same group or same activity you do. And you should always have preference because some universities only accept one, some accept 2. So the ones you think are going to be the most influential towards you, those are the ones you should submit in preference. And you should not ask people who you think are going to think of you negatively. Just don't ask them. Have ask people who you know you've had a good impression and a good influence on, and they will write good for you. So just trust them. KG, do you have anything to add for this?
Yeah, I think I would agree with what he mentioned. Just try to get people who can vouch for you, who can highlight your qualities, can really say things which might convince an admissions counselor. So it should be someone you trust. It should be someone who you confide in. But you're not allowed to look at it. The thing is, you are not allowed to look at it. So it's like more like a confidential thing. But you must like they'll be completely honest in that letter. So anything you do or say, they might they might observe it and they might write like observations or anything they notice about you. So yeah, I don't really have much else to add.
Yeah, as long as they're good to you and you ask the right people, you'll be good. Okay, so next is extenuating circumstances. So this is optional on the Common App, but I chose to write it. Others may choose to write it. They may just choose to skip it. There's no harm in writing or on your application. It's totally okay. So um, in this section, you can explain why you received low grades or had a poor list of extracurriculars in any year or anything that impacted you. So first of all, don't make a lame excuse. Don't just blame it on the teacher or blame it on your your timetable or schedule of classes or anything like that. Because if they find you making like stupid excuses, they're just gonna think like you're just blaming it on the others, and that's not going to look good. And then did not bring up COVID in the section because there is, or I don't know if there still is, but there may be a section for just COVID related experiences that you had faced. And that was there for me last year when I applied. So I don't see why it should not be this year. Um, but unless you had like a major impact, you should not bring up COVID in this section. And again, yeah, it's completely optional, but if you need the space, you can write about it. I moved between countries during my high school, so I use this to talk about the change I experienced. But again, um, it completely depends on if you want to do it or not.
No, this I actually added this here. Basically, it's an example U.S. application letter. So why I added this in here is basically just to give you an idea of how they basically issue the application. So this letter is actually mine. I've used this as an example. So some letters might actually include if you received any automatic scholarships or any grant. Um, the good thing about US scholarships is that they are actually renewable every year in most cases. So I actually highlighted that over there. So if you get like 28,000, you will actually get that for the next 4 years. So I think that's a really good thing. Some letters do actually mention this. Some letters don't. So they'll issue another letter which actually um, specifies the scholarships. Now we can move to the next. Okay, this is an example scholarship or financial aid offer, which I also included. So some letters, as I mentioned, actually list the award. So up there you can see 45,000. It's over 4 years. So if you renew it every year, total of 180,000. So they just say that to illustrate how much they're actually giving you. So most merit scholarships in the US is basically renewed every year. So you get 45,000 1 year, you get 45,000 for the 4 years. The total cost of attendance, so they might actually give you a sheet which minuses tuition, housing, food. So they actually include housing and food into the total cost. This is unlike UK or Australia where it's not directly billed by the university and you have to pay it to, wherever you get your food and housing. This cost of attendance actually might include health insurance, books, supplies, even flights. Now, theoretically, your financial aid, if you do apply for it and get it, can cover up to the total cost of attendance. So if you cannot pay anything and you are an exceptional applicant, they will even pay for your flights. They will pay for everything. But this is exceptionally difficult to get, and you must be like one of the top few applicants from your country if you even stand a chance. The merit-based scholarship usually, if you get a merit-based scholarship based on your academics and other parts of your application, just a normal application, it only extends up to the tuition fees. So that, but there is a few merit scholarships which cover housing and food, but they are a lot more competitive. Some merit scholarships actually are based on just your SAT score. A lot of public universities do this, so they actually give like reduction even up to full tuition fees. There are universities which offer that. Some of them even offer housing and food as well. So if you do get a need-based financial aid grant, you need to apply for it yearly. So if the tuition fees will rise every year in the US, it doesn't stay the same. But then the amount you pay will be the same because you reapply for it. Yeah. We can move on to the next. So Fire, maybe you can share your application
Okay,
experiences.
yeah. So what I did was, okay, I'm going for engineering. So I applied for engineering in universities in the US only, just because I live in the US, so it's just more convenient. Oh my God, it's just more convenient that way. Um, sorry. Um, yeah. So I started researching the universities like in July, probably. Yeah, in July, and um, I mainly factored in location for my primary judgment because I wanted something that was close to home. I didn't want to go so far away to travel. Um, Again, I want to visit my parents easily and stuff like that. So yeah. So for UIUC, which is the university I got into, I had 2 required essays to do, and I think in total I had about 9 essays additionally to the Common App essay. and um, it is stressful. I'm just gonna let you know it is stressful. You're gonna face a lot of trouble. You're gonna be like staying up late on certain days and struggling to finish the stuff up. It's normal for that to happen. But as long as you be persistent and get the feedback, because that's really important. Without feedback, you're just gonna be stuck. I think that is essential. But without that, you really can't progress much. And I think that's one thing that makes and breaks your essay and your quality for your essays. For my academics, again, I told you I took the APs, and I don't know, it's kind of weird compared to A levels and IB because like it's not just math, but the math is split up into different subjects, and you can take all these subjects separately. So I took 9 in total, which I think most people would probably do if they're going for engineering, because it's a hard thing to get into. Um, but yeah, I didn't honestly expect to get into UIUC because I probably was on the lower end of the academics and the extracurriculars, but I think I did fine. I think um being in the silver probably boosted my extracurriculars because I've been doing this for a while now, even before I moved to the US, and I think that was really helpful for me. For the SAT, I did take it. It's a requirement to take it from my school. I got a 1430 if anyone's interested, but I did not send my SAT score to the university because, again, I checked the common data set thing, which KG talked about earlier, and I was on the lower end of what most students applying to engineering would get. So, um, I would also say make sure you find out the average scores for your specific major or the just the engineering department because it varies between your major and the entire school. Because the entire school probably has really low average, but if you're applying for something competitive, it will have much higher averages. Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can add. You can stop now, KG.
Okay, so I actually wrote a bit of what I'll mention. I'll try to keep it short. Uh, I think looking back throughout my application experience, I would say it was a roller coaster ride, but I think it was worth it. So I'll start by mentioning I did mention I applied to around 60 colleges. I think it was around 59, 60, around that range. I did keep track of it. Um, but the reason why I did this, there's a few. One of them is scholarships and financial aid. So as I mentioned, it does get more competitive if you need the financial funding. I did need a lot of that funding. So yes, so I actually applied to a variety of colleges, mostly private unis and private colleges, liberal arts colleges, which offered that sort of funding. Another aspect was my grades were not exactly the best. They were a mixture of A's and B's. Now, this does become a problem because a lot of people in my country and in my region, there are a lot more competitive applicants. So it does get a lot more competitive since all they will actually review your application in the context of your country, in your region, in comparison to other international students as well. So that's another thing. I wasn't exactly sure of which university I wanted to go, what sort of college I wanted to go. So I was more interested in these type of colleges called liberal arts colleges, whereas the class sizes are a lot smaller. It's a purely undergrad focused experience with a lot of they don't have any graduate schools. The schools are a lot smaller. I kind of like that, so mainly I applied to those types of colleges. Not more of those larger private or public universities. I didn't really apply to a lot of those. So I wasn't totally sure of where I wanted to go. That's why I applied to a lot of colleges. But I did know that I think in my application materials, I did know the things I wanted to put. I wanted to explain my unconventional journey. If you did notice that my IGCSEs were fully science based, and I actually did humanities A levels, so I actually explained that shift and my struggles and how I came to finish my A levels. Actually, that is partly the topic of my essay as well. So I was able to portray that sort of change, that sort of an improvement through my essays and through my extracurriculars. I tried to show my well-roundedness. I think that is the reason why I did manage to secure an offer from Georgetown in Qatar, which was completely unexpected to me. I expected myself to get rejected since the application rate is actually quite low, and I am on the lower end when it comes to the academics as well. So I think for future applicants, what I would recommend is just give it your all. Just try to portray yourself in a way which represents you completely, as a person, not just academically. And the US application system, despite its flaws, does have its merits. The main merit is that it actually recognizes you as a complete individual rather than just on the basis of your grades. So just go for it. You don't have to have straight A's or straight A stars. I think I was able to prove that. And there are a lot of good universities and good opportunities for those who can find it. And this might not be in the US. It can be in any other country. It really depends on a lot of factors. So yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, just like KG mentioned, you should really focus on the upward trend path that the university looks for. So again, it doesn't matter if you start off bad because the transition into high school can be hard. But remember, if you're improving, that's all that matters. Okay, so the next section is UK universities, but we have another host who joined us after we started.
Hi. I don't know what to introduce myself as. You can call me David. For registration later, but I think that's identity theft, so just pronounce it however you want. I did 10 IT subjects and 5 A subjects and IPQ. And I did 4 subjects for A level. You can read my grades there. I applied to the UK and Ireland for history. For Ireland, it was called European Studies, and I got accepted to all the school that I applied to. Yeah, I think that's it. What else is supposed to say? So we're gonna leave it.
Wait, I think your mic is like cutting out a lot. Okay, we'll just move on.
Okay, so long story short, you can read the information there, but just call me David Beckham, former Manchester United player. That's identity theft. So those are my grades, and I applied to the UK and Ireland for history and modern languages, specifically French. And for Ireland, it was European studies. It only applied to Trinity College Dublin in Ireland. So yeah, and I'm going to be going. Hopefully, I've earned the University of Cambridge to study history and modern languages. Yeah.
Okay. Viper, do you want to go ahead with this?
Okay. So the application
Wait, is this
process
me or
for the
you?
UK, you can do this part if you want.
No, actually, you can do it. Whatever you want.
So the application process for all UK applicants, it has to be submitted through ucas.com. In UCAS, all applicants must fill in key information which is found in the application dashboard. All applicants must write a 4,000 character word essay called the personal statement. Aside from the personal statement, you will also need to fill in personal details in your UCAS dashboard. If applicable, you must sit admission tests depending on your university. E.g., you'll be required to sit the TIMUA if applying for mathematics at Cambridge. You may also be required to sit English proficiency tests.
Sorry
IELTS,
to stop you there.
TOEFL.
For admissions test, if you're applying to Oxbridge, most of the things you apply for, you have to take an admissions test, so that's a bit special. But yeah, I'll go into detail more about it if there are any questions. If there are, then
Yeah, thanks, David Beckham. So moving on. Moving on. So the personal statement is structured as following. It is a 4,000 character essay, which should be mainly built up on work experience, a bit less on academics, a slightly smaller portion on extracurriculars. Conclusion and intro mostly take 10% of the personal statement. So we'll be guiding you on how to write each individual part. So what does each section entail?
wait. To clarify for the personal statement part, I think if you're applying for other universities, then you can do that. But if you're applying for Oxbridge, I would say it should actually be 80% academic and 20% everything else. And also, work experience really only applies if you're doing a STEM subject. If you're not, I would say most of it would be your academics and stuff.
Thank you, David Beckham. So the introduction is a clear introduction explaining why you want to study this course and how it relates to your future aspirations. Work experience should take up majority of your essay, and it's what you've done to enhance your skills and experience for that course, like working in an airfield for expertise to be an aerospace engineer. This section should also include things you've done throughout your life to express your interests. Now, academics. This part engages with the academic side of your course. It can be intracurricular or supracurricular. It can be any research, experiments, etc. Extracurricular activities are things done beyond academics, which are personal hobbies. And finally, the conclusion should be a concise, maximum like 3-line ending to your personal statement as to why you fit for this course. So the steps are, first of all, you have to plan this out. You can't do this last minute. So when you're planning, what do you want to study and why did you choose it instead of something else? Yes.
You actually can do it last minute, but carry on.
Thank you for my yeah. So what qualities and experience do you have to make you fit for this? What are your interests, skills, and aspirations? So then we have the beginning of the personal statement. Type your personal statement in Google Docs, which will allow ease of access or advisors or anyone editing your personal statement. You need to be like to the point. You need to cut to the chase. They need to know why you want the course, not stuff about what you did when you were 5 and etc. Now you also have to describe why the course is so important to you, where you start going into detail on things you've done to demonstrate your enthusiasm and skills for the course and why you want to study this for 3 or more years. Also, it's good to note that you need to make this yours. If you it's very easy to copy someone else's style, but you'll start losing your voice and persona in the process. So then there's a main body. This is where you uh like the going into the detail part. This is where you start writing about why you chose the subject, your qualities, experience, your academic experiences. This should be done primarily before year 13 because when you come to year 12 or 13, the stress starts to build up. So it's best done before A levels. Also, it should include your enthusiasm for your current studies by citing some recent work or chapters that you enjoyed, and you need to express the skills you acquired from them. This needs to be majority. Then you also have to give proper and applicable examples, not, oh, I'm an organized and motivated person, etc. Then for the finishing, once you're done with all the relevant academic writing, start writing about yourself, your hobbies, your extracurriculars, your interests. Conclude by summing up all your points and address the main question. Why do you deserve a place in this course?
Okay,
So here are
uh,
some. Sorry.
yes, okay, David Beckham speaking. So the do's of a personal statement. The first point, I mean, remember that it is about you, but actually, it's not really about you as a person. It's more about you and your academic interests. Like, how did you decide that you liked the subject? What did you do to kind of prove that you liked the subject? Did you read books? Did you take online courses and things like that? And yeah, and that's what you should do. And also, write about things that you can't back up. You can. So actually, I think this only really applies for if you're applying to Oxford or anything that involves an interview. I didn't actually read any of the books in my statement until the interview. Um, and yeah, when I think that's when you should prepare. And for extremely competitive courses, of course, you should find out a lot about the nature of the course. For example, with medicine, you have to take the UCAT. I'm not sure if they're screening or not, but especially for CS and medicine, I feel they have very strong maths requirements and strong subject requirements. If you feel that you don't like math or you're not doing well at math in A level, then you might not want to do those subjects. But you should research what is involved in the course and things like that, especially for those subjects. And, it's all about the reason why it's called a personal statement is because it's personal to you. And you should talk about what what experiences led you to pick the course that you wanted to pick or stuff like that. For example, for me, when I wrote my personal statement for French, I remember when I was younger, I was taken to get ice cream and my aunt pronounced creme brulee in a perfect French accent, and I realized that I loved the sound of it, and that was why I wanted to start taking French classes. So I started my personal statement off of that. But it's very different to everyone. It's more about how it shapes you. And leave a blank line. Now, this is a funny one because you pass, you have to have 47 lines. If your line count is over 47, honestly, I would just scrap the blank lines. But if you could, then for sure leave it in. And definitely check for grammatical errors. If you make a few, you're not going to be completely penalized, but it definitely changes the perception of you, and then you'd be coming across as someone who doesn't take care for their own writing and who's not very meticulous. But yeah, those are the do's of writing a personal statement. And don't don't write it like a greeting. You're not writing them an email. Do not make jokes. As for the interview, um, now don't put the blame. So this isn't something you're doing in your personal statement. This is something that sorry, something that your referee is going to write for you. So, for example, I studied French A-level by myself because my school didn't offer it as a subject. So my referee would have to write that, not me. Like it has to be done by your referee, not you. Same applies to extenuating circumstances. And yeah, like of course, the detailed examples. I'm not talking about details in oh yes, during my work experience, I ate this for lunch. No one cares about that. No one cares about what you did. They care more about what you learned from it and how you apply it. For example, even if you were just doing an office job for your work experience and you're applying to study physics, talk about you can talk about relevant experience. For example, if you're operating a computer and you've decided to start fixing computers, talk about how that sparked your interest in electrical engineering and things like that. Like it's about how you apply your work experience to what you want to study instead of what you actually do and don't. And yeah, don't just list stuff. It's not about how much you do. This isn't like a US. This is a competition for extracurriculars. This is what did you do and what did you learn from it. And yeah. Also, exactly. Don't mention medical problems. Like I knew a friend who applied for psychology, and she talked about the medical experience that her family member faced and how it led her to psychology. And I think that's a good idea. For example, Viper is doing medical physics. He wanted to specialize in medical physics, and he talked about relevant medical experiences. But definitely do not use that as like pity point. Like you're not writing. This isn't about your personality. This is only about your interests. This isn't like the U.S. where you can make up some sob story and they'll take it. This is more of your academic interests as a whole. Yeah, actually, don't write a personal statement that's applicable to one university because all your choices are getting one personal statement, and don't gloss one over the other. I know people who apply to LSE, London School of Economics, tend to do that because they're quite strict, but I would really suggest you don't. And also, absolutely do not use ChatGPT. There are plagiarism and AI checkers. They will be able to detect it, and you do not want to face the consequences when they do. Right. Yeah. I think this is very the starting of your personal statement is very important. For example, don't start with famous quotes or, you're not writing a thesaurus. You don't have to talk about, you don't have to find the most, I don't know, elite, verbose way to say something. This isn't, you're not in a first language English exam. You're writing a personal statement. You have 4,000 characters. Very little. Find a way you can express as much as you want in those characters. Also, don't start with a quote. Don't start with Martin Luther King once said that I had a dream because everyone had a dream. Like that's no. Don't start it with a quote. It's very cliche. And actually, the don't write your personal statement close to the deadline. Yeah, I kind of agree with that because you shouldn't, you shouldn't kind of leave the planning to the last minute. Like you can know what you're gonna write, but you can write the writing in the night. Like I'd say the total writing time of mine took about 30 minutes. But please plan it first. And yeah, like once again, no listing and don't write if you're doing PPE or I don't know, international relations to politics, don't mention sensitive topics like Israel and Palestine, stuff like that. I think it's very common sense. And don't, this is your personal statement. Actually, I had a fight with my referee because he wanted me to remove the creme brulee part. And I was like, no, that is a part of why I want to study the subject. So don't let anyone kind of have at you for it. And yeah, don't be overly dramatic. Don't talk about your weaknesses. This is a pick me thing. Like this isn't oh yes, this isn't a critical character analysis. Please pick me. So just keep that in mind. And also don't start off with, oh, when I was 5 years old, I fell down. No one cares. It has nothing to do with your subject. And, you're not applying to the US. They don't particularly care for sob stories. Anyway, yeah, that's basically what I just said earlier. I've always been passionate about. That's a big fat lie. I wanted to investigate dinosaurs when I was 4. So obviously, it's not. You're not gonna sustain an interest when you're 4 to now. So I avoid that. Best intro is relative. It's about what shapes you the most. For me, it was creme brulee. For others, it might be something else. But have a hook. Have something that's unique to you that people will want. But absolutely do not say, oh, for as long as I can, or when I was a child. Yeah.
Okay, so my application process was actually helped by AG herself, who
It's actually
edited
David
my
Beckham.
application a lot. Oh, I'm so sorry, David Beckham. The former Man United player himself helped so much in that application of mine because my advisor mostly gave a lot of attention to the Common App applicants, and it was hard to like apply without any guidance. But originally I applied for physics, um, and it was relatively easy compared to what I'm doing now, which is electrical engineering, because I did more for physics than uh, electrical engineering. So the main body part was easier, but overall, the application process for me was very delayed, which is also a reason why I said don't delay the personal statement, because it takes time, it takes a lot of thought to make a very good personal statement. Uh, I was meant to originally apply in October to November, but ended up applying mid-December because of my advisor being more inclined to help the Common App students. Uh, Overall, I would say it wasn't as hard because I didn't apply to many universities. I only stuck to the UK, so I only had to focus on the 4,000 character essay. But it was relatively strenuous because a lot of thought process was going into it. Lots of stuff was being edited out. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so my experience, I would say, was quite different because with Oxford applications, you don't realize how different it is until you actually do it. So I was stressing out a lot because there were so many deadlines I never knew about. I thought it was just, oh, you send in a personal statement, that's it. No. For Cambridge, I had to, you know, after a few days of submitting my applications, I had about 5 days to write an additional personal statement for something we call the My Cambridge application. They'll send you the link when you've applied and they've acknowledged your application. But you fill that in, kind of saying what you did in AS levels and specifically what you want to study if you're doing natural sciences or even history among languages. I had to select which one I want to apply to. And then you have to write an additional personal statement, enter everything you did in AS, and international students, you have to pay £60 to apply. Yeah, I know. And then after that, you just have to wait for an interview invitation. But before that, you have to submit written work. If you're applying for a non-STEM major, you have to send in some written work, 2 pieces. It was 2 pieces for me by the deadline. And then after that, I got a notice for an admissions test, which was, you don't have to pay for it. They have to do it online and they video call you and you kind of have to do it in a given time of things. And then after that, you get shortlisted for interview. And then after that, you get your results. Like you, yeah, you get whether you get an offer or not. Something I actually didn't really know was that it's just, it's very holistic. Like, I also didn't know that there were colleges. So there are about 13 in Cambridge, and you choose which one you apply to. You don't apply to the university. You you apply to the separate college. For example, if I'm applying to St. John's, I have nothing to do with Cambridge. I'm applying to just St. John's. So yeah, that was it. And to research which college you want to apply to, check how far it is from the uni. Do you like its architecture? Does it offer good food? Are the fellows in your college good at what they teach? Do they follow the same field as you do? And all those things. There are websites that if you DM me, I will give you links to that will help with your college, finding out which college suits you. But yeah, that was it for me. And I also have to submit my application in October and things like that. A lot of interview prep. But yeah, everything else was just relatively simple. Yeah.
Okay, hello, I am South. my information was in the IB presentation because I hosted that one. But basically, I'm a second year student at the University of Adelaide doing a master's degree. In IGCSE, I did 11 subjects, 9 A stars and 2 A's. And then in IB, I went on to do get a 40 points out of 45. My A sharps were Spanish B, English literature, maths A sharp, and my standard levels were physics, philosophy, and geography. So yep. I think we can continue on. Just yeah. Okay. So again, what I want to reiterate is that I didn't make those slides because I'm a domestic. I have citizenship for Australia, so that means actually like most of you applying will be international. So those experiences will be different. There will be a slide at the end where I'll just talk about my own experiences, and then you can just compare from there. Okay, so like you're unlike the US and kind of more like the UK, your academics are the are kind of pretty much only factor that gets considered when applying to Australian unis. Actually, you'll be surprised. Many Australian universities they don't really care about grades too much. The scores would be like a 30 or 31 IB points. In A levels that'd be kind of a BCC. Um, yeah, so like at least for like an arts degree or a sciences degree, something general like that. If you want to do more like competitive subjects like medicine, of course, at UCSE you actually need 45 IB points, which is the maximum for medicine. Also, like physiotherapy is quite in demand. But even for like say computer science, you'd only need a 35 on average IB, or that'd be like AAB in A levels. So you'd be surprised that Australia's a lucky country. Granted, we're not that cheap either. I remember that for international students, the student visa fees are quite concerning. More specifically on that, there used to be 710 Australian dollars. Now they've been raised up to 1,600 Australian dollars. That'd be 1,000 US dollars. Yep. So they've been increasing the fees by a lot to reduce immigration. And that's a key consideration. Again, it's a recent policy. I'm not sure like why exactly. Maybe to reduce like the stress in the housing market. There's not enough homes in Australia, not enough student accommodation, things like that. So like they might raise entry requirements. I don't know. This is all speculation. But for now, the grade boundaries, the entry requirements would remain quite lenient compared to other countries, I would say. Yeah. So for A level students, they should. Some unis actually do list the exact grades you need, but a lot of unis aren't really bothered. They just list an ATAR. ATAR stands for like the Australian high school like percentage mark. So basically, yeah. That means like AC is kind of like shit, honestly. 90 is kind of like good, but still like could be better. Like 95 would be pretty good, and then like 99 would be like insane. Like yeah, and it's like there's like 99 point like 50 and 99.95 is the highest. So like that's just a general overview. There are conversion tables on the UAC website. UAC is the University's Admissions Center, and they have a table for IB. I think they have a table for A levels as well. I'm not 100% sure, but they should have one as well. For IB students, don't worry because your grades will be converted directly into like an IB point score. So just like look at that. You don't have to worry about the conversion too much. Yeah. So like offer letter, obviously, for an offer letter, yeah. So that's after you like you probably know what grades you need to apply, just apply, and then like if you meet those grades, you have a place. That's really simple. After your offer letter, you will have to attach that offer letter to your consulate to get your visa, right? Your student visa requires a confirmation of enrollment. Confirmation of enrollment. So yeah. Yes, so you apply directly or actually that's not quite right. You apply to each state. So in Australia there's 8 states. For example, Melbourne is in Victoria, Brisbane is in Queensland, and also Sydney is in New South Wales. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes,
Um
yes.
cool. Okay. I thought you couldn't hear me. Okay. Okay, so basically you have to pay for each state you apply to, and also you can only have one choice. Like because like you know what gonna you know your grades already, so like you know if you're gonna get accepted or not. So like if you probably should aim for your first choice. Like it's kind of realistic like that. So basically, you can only apply to one uni per state. Like unless you reject the uni's offer and it's a bit messy, don't do that. Just apply to one uni per state. That means basically be like a bit selective beforehand. Basically do your research. By doing your research, which other people didn't talk about too much before, I'd say don't look at rankings, look at student experiences, look at your major, what subjects you're doing in your major. You have like your course load, four subjects per semester. Check what options are there, like some subjects like maths, maybe compulsory for degree, some are not. You have electives that could be like broadening electives, which could be like humanities for maths, so like things are not related, or you could have major specific electives, which kind of are like the specializations of your major. So like yeah. And also the very important thing is that when you apply is after you get your results. It'd be crazy, don't do it. You can apply for semester two, but that starts in July. So like you have a month and a bit. Not even for A levels, like for IB can just make for IB you need predicted grades and A levels you actually do need your predicted grades for semester two entry. But then you have like a month or not even that for A levels. Like you have a very short time. Like to move to Australia, get your banking account, get your medical like insurance, your stuff all sorted before you like move in to your new accommodation and then like get to start uni. That's too stressful, I think. You much better just relaxing, taking the time off. Coming to uni feeling like well rested, well like energized. So you start like between like May or June or so, and then next year's February, you have like about 9 months, which is what I did. I'll talk more about that later, but yes. Next slide. Yes. Yeah. Basically, you need your results, predicted grades. For semester two, but otherwise for semester one entry in the next year, you would need your final grades. Yeah. For IB students, do not download your grades. Your grades for IB will be sent from the IB himself. So like your IB will like give you in the section there'll be a place to put your personal code, so like your candidate number basically. You put that in your application and then you'll get your results delivered straight away. Don't think about it. Yeah. For A levels, I'm not too sure, but I think Cambridge should have something where like they can send the results directly. If not, like just upload them. Like there should be a place to upload them. Yep.
I think
Passport
with this
copy.
system,
Yep. Sorry.
you kind of have to upload it yourself because I think
Yeah,
Cambridge
for A
only sends
levels.
it to the UK. Yeah, they only send it to UCAS. Everything else you need to do it yourself and submit it. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's why I'm not like I'm only like I'm domestic, so like I have my own experience. Okay. Passport
Yeah.
copy? I guess so. Yeah, that's probably sounds right.
Internationals will ask for
Um,
that. Yeah.
yep. Um, degree programs. Yeah. So like it's very common. Like actually the degree requirements are not too strict for Australia. It's usually like one subject. Usually English is like English for like your English language requirement. For English, your general paper also counts as a requirement. So like you don't have to do English in A level. Don't worry. Um, but then yeah, and then also like usually it's the next most required subject is maths at some level. Like so like maths HO for like engineering or like physics and stuff. You need maths HO. Either AI HO or A HO, which is like pure applied maths are fine. The unis don't care in Australia which one you do. As long as it's HO, like the right level. Also like sometimes you have like there's no requirement, but it's like kind of assumed knowledge. So like you like they basically trust you to like know your stuff. They don't check it, but then like the results will kind of like show up in the first semester. Like if you know your stuff, then and if you practice, like then like good for you. Don't need to show anything to the uni. So assumed knowledge is kind of like those things you should be careful about because the uni just trusts you, but then like you can't slack off. Like you should be able to like if you're not doing the subject, you should need to like self study over summer, whatever. If you don't like basically like have the subjects like choose the subjects wisely so that you don't have like you don't have a kind of like situation where you need to cram and stuff in summer to like meet the kind of assumed knowledge like requirements of uni. And then also to agents, I'm not familiar with that. There's basically no need for Australia actually. Like we don't have any personal statement. We just have like we just yeah, like there's no point. I think there might be a small point for like residential colleges, like where you like have your meals are provided to you and also like where it's more intimate, where there's much more like community in life, and also a stronger like academic like emphasis on like studying properly, like getting good grades in those colleges, like kind of like Cambridge or Oxford. That's how they do it. Like that's optional, of course. And for those, you probably need personal statements, of course, and you'll probably need some kind of like extracurriculars and stuff. But then apart from that, there's no need. Even like ANU, the top in the country, that's the Australian National University. They had a plan to introduce a personal statement, like an extra. I mean, like no, not like a statement, but like to for you to talk about your ECs. But then there's actually no need now. Like it got scrapped. So like yeah, they don't really care. Next slide, please. Scholarships are limited because yeah, Australia has lower degree requirements because they rely a lot on the money, especially the visa being so expensive, as I said earlier. Um, yeah, that's very rare to have 50% or 100%. If you're like financially like disadvantaged, you have a small grant, like maybe like $1,000 to cover your textbooks and stuff, but that's pretty much it. If you're talking
Mm.
about like 50% or even 20%, you probably have to be like really good in terms of grades and ECs. So like if you are that kind of person, like of course apply, but then like if you're not like there's not really much to apply, I don't think it's worth it. If you're not like the top student. Yeah. KG, do you want
Yeah,
to say
I
anything?
think yes. I think in regards to this, I think
KG.
if you're Australian, you do have loans or other funding, some grants or something. But if you are not an Australian
Oh yes.
citizen, yes, you probably won't get any of that. So you'll get some scholarships. Some of them will automatically give 5,000 or 10,000. I got something like that. But they will still ask you to cover the rest of the tuition fees and the living costs, which is quite expensive in Australia. So the first year you probably have to spend a lot more, even if you work part time for the second year and third year and fourth year. Um, and there is a fourth year sometimes, I think, over there. So it's a very limited nature. So if you don't really have a sponsor from your home country or you can't really fund the course yourself, then I would suggest looking at other countries as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Australia ranks in the middle in terms of like cost in general for internationals. Not expensive as like Harvard or anything, or like state colleges in the US. But then like I think like UK is probably a bit cheaper. I'm not sure. Like it's about the same now because it's been insane recently, but it's around the middle in terms of cost. So like don't make it. Don't, it's not a disaster, but yeah, just be careful. Also for domestic students, I'm one. So like for domestic students, your government will cover the cost for you. So like you sign like a letter, a promise to government saying that like you'll pay your loans back when you exceed a certain amount income wise. So like that's I think 40,000 Australian dollars per year. So basically, like if you're not a student, like if you have a proper job, then you should be like and full time as well. Then you should be above that. So so basically, when you start a full time job, you start paying like gradually. Yeah. Um, yes. So also in terms of funding, I think in terms of living costs, definitely inflation has hit like Australia and the rest of the world pretty hard. I guess yeah, so like if you consider that cost, I would recommend living somewhere near the city. So like a lot of student accommodation, there's a different tier levels, like you can like have your own room and that's expensive of course. You can share with like 4 people or 5 people. That's less expensive. If you live further within the city, it's less expensive, of course. And then you just have a house, you arrange it privately. You know, maybe if you find some like WhatsApp group, talk to the students and they're like eventually live together. That could save you a lot of money. Also like don't eat out as much and stuff. Have kind of like student discounts for like Spotify or like for like your furniture. Not I mean like for like your beddings and stuff. Or like for like Netflix and Spotify or for your like laptop as well, like your technology and stuff and textbooks and stuff. Actually for textbooks, Australian unis after COVID, especially they don't have like physical textbooks, they have course notes. So actually you shouldn't need many textbooks. I think for medicine, and like it'll be a bit different, but then at least for like my major in mathematics, I haven't actually used a single physical textbook. So like it can vary a lot by major, but then like your living costs will probably be more in terms of like living and like eating rather than kind of like academic stuff. So like yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, so like I came up with this slide. It wasn't originally here. So for Australia, the system to study further is a bit different. Your honors is kind of like a UK integrated masters, except it's not like you don't have to do one if you don't want to. You can apply to have like a direct. You can apply like with higher grades, of course, high grade requirements to do like integrated bachelor's or honors, but then like there's not much points. You just have to do well enough in your undergrad. Like for honors, you need a 5 out of 7. So that's like a 5 out of 7 is not too bad actually. Six out of 7 is actually a bit more challenging, but then yeah, for honors you don't need too much academically. There's more coursework. You do like I think 2 or 3 subjects per semester. And then of course that's as your research. A small research component doesn't have to be original. Can be like just like for maths, like just demonstrating like some application like by using math logic or like I don't know about other subjects, but then kind of it's less original. Like it's kind of like you just have to kind of be able to use your own words to kind of give a new perspective, but then it doesn't have to be like a bit it doesn't have to be a lot. But for masters you need more independence. Your supervisor will lead a lot of your work for you. So they'll just give you assignments in first year. They give you like they'll be guiding you like one on one. To make sure like you can do the topic because like in STEM like the knowledge gap is a huge thing, so then like you have to like know like how to your fundamentals to do any kind of research. In humanities it might be a bit different. It could be like more open, I think. Yeah, so like honors is not funded. Masters is. They'll give you like 50,000 Australian dollars to research for the uni. It's quite generous actually compared to other countries. There is more in other countries like US, but you have to be good for those. And also like master's applications are handled by the uni and not the department. So like if you're interested in that, like first year don't worry, but for second year, third year, remember that Australia is like the UK, only it's 3 years for undergrad. It can have 4 years for like education, but then like the normal degree is 3 years. Yeah, it depends on the major a lot, but then like normally it's 3 years, even though there's like professional degrees that have 4 years. So in your second and final year, you should begin like approaching your supervisors, just emailing them, going to the office hours, just saying like, hey, like I have this topic, can you do this at this uni? What kind of ideas, what kind of resources can I look at to develop my topic? And then you'll be on the radar to so that when you do like your application, you have to have a completed topic ready. Just a topic idea doesn't have to be too detailed, but then like just know what you're researching and be organized and stuff like that. So like if you want to have a research further study degree, then be prepared in undergrad to kind of go to those like talks, go to those kind of like networking events and stuff, clubs. Work experience also might be helpful. I'm not too sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Work experience. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah, maybe I
okay.
can explain this on the next one, if
Okay.
that's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is more for international students. So I just attached this example offer letter to kind of give you an idea of what the uni will actually offer you after you get the offer. Coincidentally, it's Adelaide where South is currently studying at, so I just applied to it. I think I used an agent to do it, but it shouldn't really matter. So the offer will basically specify whether it's conditional or unconditional. So if it's conditional, you kind of have to submit something like the English proficiency test, or you have to submit your final IB or A level results. If it's unconditional, you don't have to do anything else. You just have to secure the offer if you want to join and accept it. The intake will be specified in the offer. So semester one will be January or February, and semester two will be July. And the orientation date will be specified as well. The annual tuition fee will also be specified. So I think for Australian citizens, it will be a lot cheaper. It will be subsidized. For international students, it will be a higher fee. And the program deposit or first semester tuition fee, I think you will need to settle that before you actually join. And it does give you the completion date as well, which is a bit unique. I think it's more of an Australian thing. The full study mode is just full time, and the campus is also specified. right there for you. We can go to the next slide. So if you receive any sort of scholarship, it will also be specified in the offer letter. And there is like an offer validity, so you have to accept the offer by a certain date, or else it kind of becomes void. Actually, this is the same for the UK or the US, just that it might not be explicitly stated. So you kind of have to accept by a certain point, or you will basically miss the intake or miss the. And in the UK and the US, it's basically only once a year, which is August or September in most cases. But in Australia, you have the convenience of two intakes. I think the reason for this is that the Australian system is a bit more flexible when you actually join. So they offer multiple intakes. But I believe some programs you can only join in like July, or you can only join in like February, from what I've heard. And these scholarships are all automatically assessed in most cases. Some scholarships you might have to apply for it. So usually you have to apply for admission first, and then you have to write some essays. So I did this for the University of Sydney, and then I got around 20% off, or something like that, when I received the offer letter. I believe the tuition fees for international students do rise every year in Australia. In the UK, if you join in like September 2024, they actually promised to keep the fees the same for all 3 years or all 4 years in most cases. I think in Australia, they don't actually do that. It does rise a bit every year. I think, as South mentioned, I think there is inflation going on in Australia as well. Yeah. I think that's about it. I think after this, the slide is South could explain his application journey experiences.
So I just have a few more details to say. I'll go into experiences shortly. But then for Australia, actually each subject has a different payment. So like if you do maths, that's one band. If you do humanities, that's a higher band. And the most expensive is like dentistry and medicine, of course. But also kind of like commerce and accounting are super expensive. So even if you don't do a major, if you do like accounting in uni, that unit will be very expensive compared to your other like subjects in uni. So be aware of that. And yeah, they do rise every year. So that's yeah, the kind of like a phantom tax. Yeah. And I'll talk about more experiences. I forgot. I had another point in mind. I forgot now. Okay. So I was doing the IB in Hong Kong. In fact, before I moved to Australia for uni, I never lived in Australia. I did come to Australia for like holidays, like to see my relatives. Yeah. So when I was in high school doing the IB, I had lots of thoughts, but then I thought I'm Australian. I'm an Australian citizen, so like why not apply where it's cheaper? When we have families, at least in the same country, not in the same city. So then that's why I chose Australia. But then like I graduated without having a plan other than Australia, somewhere in Australia. I thought back into my previous experiences. My mom and dad made me like visit lots of unis. Unfortunately, we visited during Christmas, and like Christmas is the summer holidays in Australia, so they're all closed, and that's not very useful. So I went to Brisbane first. I had family there for 6 months. I did a gap year. I did my driving lessons. I went to local choir. I did a bit of volunteering, but not much. Yeah, it wasn't worth mentioning. Yeah. Stuff like that to pass the time before I apply to uni and just figure out where in Australia I would like to go. And then I saw that Australia in Adelaide there would be a uni called the Uni of Adelaide which is where I am now, that has a kind of IB kind of recognition program. I got scammed though because like you have to be in the same like major. So like if you like a science major, you can only do like science credit. There's no like even if you do arts like subjects in IB, those credits don't carry over. So be careful of the fine print. When I saw Adelaide is really a really nice city, very quiet, compared to Hong Kong. But with a lot of like kind of the city's very convenient. You have lots of like different like designer shops. You have good music, good live music as well. Good festivals. Wine as well. I wasn't into drinking wine. So basically, a lot of Australia, and in fact, like what you should be considering other than grades and like requirements is kind of your city. Like you'll be living there, you'll be a student, you'll be a young person in that city. So then, like, think about like what kind of life you'd like to have. Would you like to have different like cuisines? Or, like, would you like to live in a big city or a smaller town, or like even in a village? Like St. Andrews is actually in a village, like pretty much, because there's nothing other than a uni and people's houses. and to visit like any kind of bar, you to travel like by bus to like Dundee, another city. So like yeah, that's experience there. And like Oxford and kind of Cambridge are like a bit like that, I guess. Yeah. Then like for my experiences in uni, I went to orientation. I met my friend from my same school, and so it was wow. Like I have someone from high school like in my uni. It was a bit surreal. Um, I spent a lot of first year adjusting, a bit depressed. Honestly, I got through it. I got had to like reduce my subject load in semester two. I just couldn't handle it. But I really liked the maths. It was really stimulating to like talk about maths. I was gifted as well in high school. I didn't have many opportunities to study uni level maths at high school. So like I was really kind of looking forward to it, like finally having that uni kind of like academic life. I didn't join too many clubs. I joined a Spanish club, didn't enjoy it. I joined the Math Society and I got a lot of access to I got a lot of access to talks from professors not around the world, unfortunately, because of COVID. They couldn't come all the way to Australia. But then yeah, like around Australia at least. Yeah. And I got a lot of like free food as well. Like Pi Day has like free sandwiches and stuff. Like that's a student perk. And my accommodation is really nice. I live in an apartment. I share with three other people. I share a bathroom to save money a bit. And then yeah, just everyone's been really nice at my dorm. We like play pool together. Like we play like Mario Kart, like and stuff. And yeah, that's my life now right now. So like it can be really fulfilling. It can be a time of great change. You don't really know what you're gonna do in life even after you apply. It's not like a fixed decision. You apply and that's it. You have lots of choices as well. So like just be brave. Stay true to yourself as well. Like no one to quit. No one to kind of reach out to support. Whether it be like uni counseling or like I had private counseling for a long time as well in Australia. To help me like tide over my difficulties. I had also kind of like a choir. That's my extracurricular. I have a choir. We're quite professional. We practice once a week. In the evenings. So that we don't have like uni like it doesn't conflict with uni lesson and stuff. And that they've been my support. Just singing's been a great like release. To kind of like retention and stuff in uni and not to like think about math all the time, right? So like yeah. So that's my life in Australia right now. Thank you for listening. I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so before we answer the questions, I sent in a poll in chat. I just wanted you to answer the poll. So it's already been 1.5 hours since we started. So if you are busy and you can't make the Q&A, just we can always do the questions text based. But if you're free now and you still want us to continue, we can do live as well. So just vote in chat. I'll give you all a minute.
So for those of you who are still in the call, please kindly answer our Q&A so we can decide how to proceed, either answering the questions live or answering it in a text-based format after we end.
And just for your information, this is all being recorded, so you can always view this data just to let you know. Okay, so I think just because there's people here who want the questions to be answered now, I think we'll just answer right now. And if you are not free now, you feel free to leave, and you can look at the recording once we send it out if that works for you. Okay, just give us a sec.
Okay. So okay, I'll help to host the Q&A, and I think we'll share the questions on the screen as well. So I'll wait for Farid to do it. And then I'll just pass some of the questions to our other hosts who might be able to answer the question better. So depending on the question, we'll just take turns. Okay, the first question is, without extracurriculars, which countries can I apply to by only academic? I would say you could apply to countries other than the US. Most other countries such as Canada, the UK, Australia, they mostly care about academics for the most part. Um, the second question is about extracurriculars as well. Maybe one of you guys can answer it.
Okay, so you said you do programming, electronics, and stuff like that. That is considered an extracurricular. So that is good. And I mean, that's good enough to for what you're capable, I guess. It depends what you're applying to. If you're applying to a competitive program like Ivy League schools and stuff like that, you need to do much more. So if there's a volunteering opportunity in your area, if you have stuff like that, you can take advantage of. I would recommend you take that. But as far as going for a competitive university, that is unfortunately not enough. It depends on what level you do it. Um, if you're doing it at like a national level, or if you're doing like really intense competitions versus just doing it as a hobby, you also have to take that into account.
Right. Maybe we can move on to the next question. Can I get a scholarship based on purely my A level grades? Now, the answer to this question will really depend on which university, which country, what major you're looking at. So we cannot adequately answer it. But yes, if your A level grades are good and your profile other than that is somewhat decent, there are a lot of scholarships available. But it is your job to actually do the proper research, to look into it. But yes, it's definitely available. What extracurricular activities are great to apply for engineering course? Maybe Viper, while Viper is not
No,
here.
I can do it if you want. So
Okay, okay.
I would say if you're doing engineering, first of all, in general, you should have general extracurriculars, stuff that doesn't have to be related to your major. So if you play a sport, if you have a choir or whatever, that is all counted as extracurriculars. But then obviously you should have some which are focused on your major. So there could be like engineering competitions. There could be clubs in your school that pertain to engineering. Uh, there could be conventions you go to. There could be um, other like groups outside of school that you're part of, which discuss engineering. Again, like electronics, programming, all that is useful for engineering. So if you have any events and stuff related to those fields, yeah, I would say those.
Okay, the next question is, what do I do if I fail my GCSEs? You will need to retake them again because a lot of universities they don't like to see if you actually do fail your IGCSEs, you won't get a certificate. So you will need to redo those. The next question is, how can I get a scholarship to a list of top universities in the world?
Wait, can I add
For this,
something?
you would
Sorry.
need to, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna answer this by saying you don't. Yeah, they're very difficult to get. They're very competitive. So I think worry about getting into them first before worrying about a scholarship. Is from my
Yeah.
Cambridge experience, you have to apply to something called a Cambridge Trust, which was very competitive. It's a lot based on like financial needs. Out of all the international students, there are about 15 places, very competitive. Yeah, I would probably say it's virtually impossible.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would say, getting into those unis is like the first step, and if you can do that, the scholarship would follow. Especially in the US. I know in the UK it is a lot more harder. In the US, if you can get into Harvard, Stanford, Yale, you can get the funding that you need if you're good enough to get into those type of universities. The next question is it possible to apply to university with bad grades but decent IGCSE grades and plenty of extracurriculars? It is definitely possible to apply, but whether or not you get the offer will really depend on the universities that you actually apply to. Uh, what's the process like when immigrating to a different country for your education abroad in university, especially for someone with a weak passport? Now, I would say your passport doesn't really matter in the sense that if you can actually get a good offer and you can prove you can afford it, you can actually get the visa. This applies to the US and to the UK. As long as you can get a good offer from a good university and you can prove the funding that you have, or
Um,
if you get scholarship, better, I think, yeah.
There's something against that. If you're planning on doing law, I think you can only practice it in a country that you're kind of studying in, and you kind of, I think most cases you need a passport for that. So
Hmm.
keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it can depend on major as well. Yeah, that's definitely true. The next question is architecture majors. I believe this question is a bit more specific. Maybe we can flag this and we can try to address it later on if that's okay. The next question is how much will be enough in IB out of 45 to get a 80 to 90% scholarship abroad? South, do you have any knowledge about this?
Right. So yeah, for Australia, like you depends on the uni, like but then I guess like 42 or above would definitely be like your kind of target. Because for scholarships as well, as I said, like you need your ECs and like a personal statement. It's like why you deserve a scholarship. That's what you're looking for. So like, it depends on what kind of person you are as well. Same with the UK. So like those your personal statement, of course, but then like for scholarship, there should be another like section to write about your own like why you should deserve a scholarship as well. So like, and there's no guarantee as well. There's a chance that you'll be rejected like no matter what you do because there's just too much competition. So like, if you can't afford it, look for unis that aren't as famous. Like definitely like Cambridge won't sponsor you because a lot of people can pay like the fees just fine. Unfortunately, so you just try your best. Don't beat yourself up, I'd say.
The next question is I would like to learn how to apply for college, especially a scholarship. And I'm sure what does it matter if I can't decide? Yes, for the US, I would say you don't have to be completely sure of what you want to do. But if you're applying to other countries, they want you to be more sure of what major you want to do. How exactly to apply to other universities? I think you will need to do the research. You will need to do the groundwork yourself if you're looking at universities overseas.
I mean, it's normal.
Uh,
Like it's normal to not know what you're doing. So like for the UK, like even if it's for the UK, just apply in a related major because all of your options are really similar. Like computer science, computer engineering.
yeah,
It shouldn't matter like your like career path. Like if you just choose science, computer science, whatever. Like you can do like a more like computer engineering like focus like subjects to like lead towards that if you change your mind. And for like US can be undeclared as well. Undeclared major. So like it's only UK and maybe Canada, and Australia to some extent, but not like the most that like care. Like the US doesn't care at all. Yeah, okay.
the US, you can still decide to change your major within 2 years, but just be sure that your interested majors are like offered in that uni. Yeah. The next question is: would it be worthwhile to skip A levels and apply directly for a foundation program at a university? Now, I
Um,
think
Sorry, I just, Viper. apply for foundation year initially, no, it's not worth it. I think in some countries like Malaysia, I think KG can follow up on this. You can, but definitely not in the UK. You have to finish your A levels then you apply.
Yeah, I know they offer that in the UK too, but I think if your aim is the UK, you should do A levels and apply so that you have more choices on where to apply. And if you're looking for a scholarship, yeah, A level it is. Foundation basically assumes that you can fund the degree portion. I think doing foundation in the UK is quite pointless. Um, but if you're looking at non-UK, if you're looking at Malaysia, foundation is quite common here and in many other countries. But your scholarship option would be a lot more limited, and you can't if you have the funding and if you're sure of which university that foundation is attached to. If you're sure you want to go to that university, then a foundation might be worthwhile. But if you want to keep your options open, then do it. The next question would be
Yeah, I can answer
does
the next
apply.
question if you want.
Yes, sure, sure.
So test optional means you don't have to take the SAT. That's correct. But I would still recommend taking it even if the college has a test optional opportunity, because if you score well, then it's a good thing. You can boost your application. But again, if you don't have to submit it if you don't score well, which is what I scored decent, but I still didn't submit it.
Hmm. I think the next question, David Beckham can answer it.
Wait,
Yes.
can you read me the question?
Yes. What does Oxbridge look for in students in terms of academics and more?
Sorry, can you repeat? I'm sorry, my internet just cut out.
Okay, no worries, no worries. What does Oxbridge look for in students in terms of academics and more?
Oh, I think they're looking for like passion, as in you have to show that you like what you study, and you have to show that you've done enough to show that you've studied what you've studied, and I think they're also looking for a lot of creativity, the ability to kind of answer questions. Obviously, academic ability. Mostly, it's just your passion, what you're willing to do, and I think Oxford is just the place if you want to go into academia. Like they're looking for hardcore researchers, people who are super dedicated to what they do, and not people who necessarily do it for the money, things like that. If you're doing it for superficial reason, I wouldn't even apply because I just know for sure that you're not going to get in. They are so smart, the interviewers. They will know immediately, why you're choosing to apply. So I'd say unless you have genuine passion, yeah, that's what they're looking for, genuine passion and your ability to critically think and creatively think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For the next question, I think we can flag this question. I think we can try to address it later. Okay. The next question, I think we have addressed it in some detail in our. Oh, Fire, would you like to address it?
Okay,
Yes.
I'll just address one part of it. For
Okay.
this part, where examples are easy ones to do, I wouldn't say any extracurricular is easy, because um, you need to put in a lot of effort if you really want that extracurricular to shine. So um, it depends on what your skill set is too. It depends if you're a social person, if you're a team player, if you like to do stuff by yourself. It depends on how um, your personality is, and that makes whatever easy. So if you like helping on if you think helping on Discord is easy, then you can do that. That's an easy extracurricular if you want. Or again, it completely depends on your personality. But they are very important for the US, and I think in general they're important. You should be doing to supplement your academics.
Hmm. I think for the next question, if the 12th grade A level, so how much weight the A level mocks carry on the Common App? So if these mocks contribute to your predicted grade and you haven't finished your final A level exams, that will possibly be one of the more important parts of your application. Even though predicted grades may not as matter as much, that's the most recent thing that the admissions counselor would see. So it is good if it's good, if it is good, but your AS result would matter more, I would say, since that's like an actual predicted change, right? What all extracurriculars are preferred?
I mean, there's no specific thing that's preferred, but something related to your major is probably preferred, and they want to see diversity in what you're doing. So you could do the sport, you could do music related stuff, you could do academic extracurriculars, you can do model MUNs, and anything like that. There's no like specific preference.
The next question is: should I start applying for scholarships and unis right after I finish A2? And also, are there any extracurricular activities that can be done in Malaysia? Okay, I'll try to answer it since they mentioned Malaysia. You can start applying for unis after you finish your AS. Actually, even before your AS, it really depends on what intake you started your A levels in. But usually it's done after AS in many other countries. You can apply after A2, but you'll be kind of like in a gap year like me. I finished at the end of last year. I kind of have to wait until August for the US. For Australia, maybe you can join in February. Um, yes, you can start applying after AS or after A2. It's just a matter of the timing. Any extracurricular activities that can be done in Malaysia, I think extracurricular activities can be done anywhere. Specific to Malaysia, I can't really advise anything specific since extracurricular activities could be done anywhere. It really depends on what your interests are, and maybe for some areas, some academic areas, or some extracurricular, areas, there might be more opportunities or less opportunities in Malaysia. So it really depends on that. But anything can be extracurricular. So yeah, nothing specific I would recommend unless we have more details. I think for the next question, what is the best course of action for someone wanting to get into a Russell Group University for computer science? For someone with satisfactory academics but with no extracurricular activities.
Okay, so I'm guessing Russell Group is like the okay, so KG, you go ahead.
Okay, I did not actually apply to the UK, but I think I would say that for the UK they only care about your academics and your interest for computer science. So if you have some computer science or computing or coding related ECs, which I'm sure Vansh has because he is one of our bot developers. So I'm sure he has a lot to talk about, his interest in computer science. I think as long as if he can articulate that in his personal statement, I think that's really more than enough because the UK mostly looks at your grades and your interest in the subject. So the next question, yes, give me a moment. Okay. Okay, for the next question, suppose I have a ton of extracurriculars. What's the lowest grades I could get to go to a scholarship? Now, this really depends. It's very subjective, I think, especially for the US. Um, so we can't really. There's no lowest or highest grades. Yeah.
I feel like it depends on your overall performance, but there's no like threshold that if you get above a certain grade, you get a scholarship. You should just aim to be high in both fields. Okay, for the next one, how much extracurricular service leadership activities and competitions should I do, and what are recommended for someone who wants to major in CS? I think I already answered this question. Yeah, just make sure you're doing stuff related to CS. So like maybe you can teach younger kids how to code, like the introductions of code or something like that. But then again, make sure you diversify.
I think for the next question, we did kind of address it in our presentation a lot. really depends on which country those universities are located in. So US universities tend to look at everything, whereas UK, Australia, Canada, they tend to look at mostly your academics, and they might ask for some of your extracurricular or your interests. Like for the UK, personal statement, and some Canadian unis like to ask for some of your extracurriculars, but it's more so on academics. So US, it's kind of like almost everything. Next question is, what's your advice to someone who doesn't know exactly what they want to study or do later on? Fire, could you take this?
Yeah, I would say like, okay, at this point, if you're in like IB or A levels, like grade 11, you should be set on a particular field you want to go in, so whether that's science, humanities, and stuff. And then I would say you should apply for stuff that you enjoy doing instead of going just for the money. So, um, if you find like physics is interesting to you and you want to learn more, you should probably apply for engineering or for physics. And the thing, if you apply in the US, the nice thing is it's really flexible, so you can change your major as many times as you want, and the counselors are there to help you with it. But the US also has something called applying undecided. If you're really unsure, you can always apply undecided, and the university guides you to help you select the major you want eventually after 1 year.
I think for the next question, how important is volunteer work? I think we kind of addressed it a lot in these questions. Maybe Fire, would you like to add on a bit?
Mm, okay, so I mean, volunteer work is definitely very helpful. How many hours should one do? I don't think there's a particular requirement of how many you should do. You should do how many you can, honestly. And depending on how much it fits your schedule, what kind of volunteer work is best? Again, that depends. You could do something related to your major. You could do something in general. So I did volunteer work um in a food in a I don't know what it's called exactly, but like a food shelter or something like that. Basically, I was packing food for like underprivileged children around the world. There's an organization in my society that does that. So there's no like specific thing of what you should do, but the fact that you're doing it is what they look for.
Yeah. I think for the next question is Oxbridge advice for a student who's doing their IGCSEs this session. I think academically at this point you could just focus on getting those grades, and afterwards I think you can try to work on the profile that you need to get into Oxbridge, which is not just academics. I think you need other stuff as well, which David Beckham explained, but they have since left. Yeah. I think for the next question, what should I do this summer that will be important in my college application? I think,
So
as
I would
Fire
say
mentioned, I think
okay, if
it's
whether you're
yeah.
applying, sorry. Okay, whether you're applying to the US or the UK, what you have to do is make a list of colleges. I think that's one of the most important things. Um, do a lot of research, and then you should be making your list depending on your reach, match, and safety schools, which I talked about in the first slide. And yeah, and then you should start developing your essays and your personal statement. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't really add on anything more. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. So for the next question, what extracurriculars should I do if I want to major in CS? I think we addressed a similar question, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question: what do you write in the LSE application if there are little to no extracurriculars relating to the subject? I think maybe we could flag this and then
Okay.
go back to this later. Yeah. The next question: how important are mocks? Mocks are important when it comes to that predicted grade, as I mentioned. Other than that, mocks like your IGCSE mocks when you apply to college, I don't think it should matter. Your IGCSE actual results is the most important. So mocks are only important when it contributes to your predicted grade if you have not completed your final IB or A level exams. The next question is, how do you apply to universities? Depends on the country. In the US, not just the Common App, there are other systems as well. What do people usually use? Again, the requirements does depend on the country. How do you form an application? It also depends on what the questions or the directives are for each application. What do you include and not include? That also depends on the requirements of the application form. What do you talk about in your essay? That depends on which university it is. In the UK, it's more academically focused on your academic interests and why you are applying to the course. In the US, it's more open-ended and it's like your own personal essay that you can write about. It's like more like an open topic based thing. How should a letter of recommendation be formatted? I think we covered that at least in the US because mostly US universities ask for letter of recommendation. So I think we have kind of covered over that in that part of the slides.
Yeah, if you're asking
For
about
the
how,
next question, for
I'm sorry.
yes,
It,
yes.
one sec. If you're asking about how to form the application and stuff, all you have to do is create a Common App account, and then you can just add your university under My Universities, and then it shows all that stuff. And for all the other questions, we've answered it in the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the next question, for pursuing computer engineering, is taking chemistry and A levels necessary? No, I don't think it is necessary since for computer engineering you definitely need maths and I think you might need physics as well. For the maths might be good as well. For the next question, for subjects you reset and got a better grade in, how will you go about submitting the grade for that subject? Yes, you will need to submit both grades. How will you clarify which is the receipt so whoever reviews your application can see that the receipt date is basically after the original date. So if you do the original paper in June 2024 and then you do the receipt in June 2025, they can actually see that it's taken in advance, and then they will just take into account the better grade in most cases. But this might be a disadvantage in like more competitive universities like the very tip top Ivy Leagues and Oxbridge. They don't really like to see retakes, but for other universities it's mostly fine because I did resit one of my AS subjects, economics, and I had to submit both certificates, and they kind of figured it out, I believe. Yeah. For the next question, we can flag this. Yes. Next question: how best to search for and prepare for scholarships once your university choice is confirmed? I think this is more of a UK perspective style of question. I think for this really depends on which university, because I believe some universities like Oxbridge has some opportunities which is only for Oxbridge, maybe only for like specific Oxford or Cambridge colleges. So I believe this is more of a specific question that I'm not too sure about. But yeah, so it's more like a process. I think in the UK you need to get your offer first and then actually secure the scholarship. Sometimes you have to apply before at the same time simultaneously as well. So I hope we managed to answer your question. For the next question, we have how bad will be having no ECs, no internships, no Olympiad. For UK unis, it doesn't matter as much, but scholarships are limited for the UK. So I guess they will want to see your academic passion more than anything else. Your academic passion and your academic grades will be the most important thing for the UK. But scholarships will be very limited and it will be very limited. What tips would we give you? I think for the UK, just just perform academically, try to show academic interest. Since you have 2 years, please do start doing some sort of extracurriculars, internships, anything related to your major. Volunteering is also good. Reason why we say that is that if you decide to apply to the US, or even if you don't put it in your college application, doing extracurriculars like these actually it contributes to your overall growth. I think these activities are like it's very beneficial, even if you don't use it for college applications. I think Fire, I think you would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next question, we have kind of addressed that. It really depends on the country that you're applying to. how can I apply for universities? It depends on which country you're applying to.
Yeah,
You would
we've
need to
answered that
do
in this
your
whole
own background
presentation. So
research.
just you just have to watch the presentation. We've covered almost everything.
Yes, yes. So you would need to do your groundwork if we didn't mention some of it before. The next question is it worthwhile to start researching on universities? Yes, definitely. But don't look too much into it until the year before you start applying. I think that is when you should really start finalizing. A few months before the applications open is when you should start narrowing down. At first, you can just look through what you kind of require. Is it worth it to switch subjects from grade 11 to from sciences to humanities? It depends on which kind of degrees that you're looking at. But if you're still not too sure, just finish your IGCSEs first, and then try to narrow down and then decide which field you kind of want to go into. So if you do A levels or IB, you will still have some flexibility in choosing subjects which appeal to a lot of degrees. I think it's more so in IB since you get to do 6 subjects. In A levels, you kind of have to be a bit more specific. So you still have time. Just try to figure out what you're more interested in. You can look through universities, but you don't have to narrow down research stuff. Just focus on the subjects that you have and do well in the IGCSEs first before you start to narrow down. I think you will be a bit older by then for you to make a more specific decision. Uh, yes, you can continue model UNs as well in university. You don't have to stop doing it. I think model UNs are quite common, quite popular as well in many universities and colleges as well. The next question is in taking 6 subjects in October, November, IGCSE, when should I aim to give the SAT? Since I have National Olympiad as well. For this, you will need to see what timings work. Like how can you prepare for it within a certain time period. So it's something you will need to kind of figure out. But try to get it done before your AS is what I would say. You could just start your A levels or IB. Just try to get it done by the first year, so that when you actually apply in your second year after your AS or after your IB year 1, you would have that SAT score already. You might need to retake it if you want to get a better score. So you will have that time to do the retake. You don't have to do it before your IGCSEs. You can definitely do it during your first year of your pre-university or A levels or IB or equivalent. What do you suggest about the SAT? Maybe Fire, maybe you could
Yeah. So
SAT and
one more thing
ACT.
to add
Maybe you
about the
could
previous
comment on that.
question is that So one more thing to add about the previous question is that the SAT is offered like all through the year, so you can actually take it at any point. It happens like once a month, I think, if I'm not wrong. So again, depending on when you're the least pressured and if you have time, just study for it. It's There's not a lot to study for because it's not like a science exam. You gotta like know the concepts and stuff. It's just that you gotta practice. That's all. So if you have time, if you have free time, all you gotta do is just practice. What do you suggest about the SAT? I mean, I guess you're asking in comparison with the ACT. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Um, the schools accept both the same way. I took the SAT just because that's what my state offers. And but if you take the ACT, it's totally fine. The only difference is that the ACT has a science section in it. So if you're good at science, maybe you can take that one. And I think the same
Okay, the
thing
next
for
question. Yes.
the same. Yeah, it covers the same thing. So do it. Okay, if you're in grade 11 and you're applying to uni this year, do it. Like start preparing right now and take it in like August or September or whenever it gets offered. You can go online to the SAT website and find out when they are offering.
Hmm. Okay, for the next question, I will be taking October, November 24 IGCSE. Is there a certain course in college I should take to apply to universities? Yes, I think for your A levels or IB or equivalent, you kind of have to narrow down to a specific field. We discussed this more in the A levels talk, but I think it's good to mention it once again. I think you kind of have to decide which area you're going into, humanities or sciences or social sciences or commerce or you know, and then you will have to pick subjects from those areas in order for you to suit those universities' requirements, should they have any. What type of extracurriculars you should join? So anything related to your major is one thing. Any of your interests is another thing. Specifically, Ivy League, they would like to see a well-rounded application. They would like to see you participating in a wide variety of extracurriculars or ECs, not just those which are academically connected. So I think we spoke a lot about extracurriculars during the talk, so you can actually rewatch it and maybe gain some ideas and insights. For the next question, is the Open University good and recognized globally? I'm planning to do my further studies online. Honestly, I would say, there are online degrees available nowadays, more so for postgraduates, such as masters and PhDs. I think more so for masters. I think I believe that I still feel that for the undergrad, going to a conventional uni, which is full time in person, I think that is better for your well being and for your growth. I think a conventional uni is still the better way to go. So the Open University is good and it's recognized, but it's mostly meant for those who are working professionals or those who are basically working. There are certain circumstances which basically doesn't allow them to go to a full-time university, so they can just quit due to some commitments that they might have. So the online programs, especially for masters, the reason why it's offered is, from what I've heard, it's mostly for like working professionals or those who have full-time commitments. So that's why online tends to be more, convenient. But for undergrad, if you don't really have much of any commitments, as most 18, 19-year-olds, so I think a conventional degree, like you going to campus, you sitting in the classroom, you actually learning from the teachers, lecturers, or professors, and you like interacting with your peers. It's like a completely different experience. Um, so while it is recognized, an online degree, I would still recommend a conventional sort of pathway where you go in person. For the next question, what are RA, EA, and ED, and what
I
should we
think I
know
answered
about
these
them?
in the
Maybe Fire,
presentation.
yes.
So it was in the first slide. So just if you were here, you could yeah. I think that was answered. I'll check the recording after we publish it.
Okay. For the next question, if you're getting your A level results in May, then you can apply in September before the exams with your AS and predicted A2. You can do that, or if you're in India, you can actually wait until after your board exams in May. After you get the results in May, you can actually apply the year after, but you'll be taking kind of a gap year if you do that. So it's up to you to choose whether or not you want to prioritize like the final exams, or if you want to finish the exams first and then apply in May. So the choice is up to you. But if you apply after May, you'll apply with your final A level results. For the next question, can I use the same essays for multiple universities? Yes, you could repurpose it, but you will need to kind of tweak it in order to suit the prompt that is being asked. For the next question, what ECs can I do where a country where ECs are pretty much non-existent? Considering I want to study CS in top unis inside the UK. Now, the UK doesn't really care much about extracurriculars. They care more about your passion for the subject. And some extracurriculars relating to CS would help in that regard, and your extracurriculars would help as well. But I think for computer science, you could definitely try to find opportunities online. I think Fire, maybe you would be able to add on to this. There's a lot of other opportunities if you can do it in person as well.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, our server is a good example of that because you can help people in
Yeah,
CS. You can become a CS helper and help people online. And if you do it for 2 months, we give you like a certificate. And so there's probably a ton of opportunities out there. But online, but
yeah,
our server is an example. But yeah,
yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that. Even both of us, we our server is actually one of the ECs that we listed. So There's a lot of opportunities online. The next question is, do I need to have a certain amount of money in my bank account before applying for a visa? Depends on the country. Yes, some countries may want to see that you have a specific, amount for funding for the first year. I know that's the case for the US. You will need to kind of prove it. Even if you get good financial aid, the amount that you still need to pay after the financial aid or scholarship, you kind of need to prove that. That's like an I-20 document for US universities. This is more like a visa document, and you will basically need to prove that. And that does not guarantee you will get the visa. That just proves that you have the document to prove it. It's up to the visa officer to decide. I think it's the same for UK and Canada. You have to show a certain amount of funding. If you get a scholarship, they'll just minus it off the full tuition fees. You know? To what extent is it true that if you take computer science, you also need to take maths as a requirement for universities if you want to go for computational biology, bioinformatics? From what I heard for computer science, uh, for any STEM related degree, I think maths will still be useful, whether or not they actually use that maths very heavily in your degree. So if you're good in maths, it might be good to go for it. For those specific degrees you mentioned, it might be helpful to look at the university entry requirements if it's the UK, since they will specify it in more detail as well. For the next question, as a general rule of thumb, what should I start doing as early as possible for uni? I think we did cover this in some detail. Fire, would you like to add on anything?
I think we already kind of answered this question before. I'm pretty sure you mean, I guess you mean the summer before uni, and if that's what you mean, you should research colleges and um make your college list and then start answering the essay prompts. But if you mean like before, like after getting admitted and before uni, um, there's really nothing you have to do after you graduate high school. So yeah.
Yeah. For the next question, weighing safety and education for international students, is it better to study in Canada, Europe, or America? Um, and if in America, which regions would be the safest or best to study in? So I'll answer the first part of this question first. It's something that you will need to weigh yourself. So you will need to look at the pros and cons of studying in each country. You know, but if you really feel that it might be like a danger or it might be something like that, it might not be as safe, then you will need there's something that you will need to weigh. You will need to see what you're willing to trade off in exchange for uh, and a good quality education. I know in the US, some places may not be as safe, but generally college campuses, I believe, tend to be a lot more safer and a lot more liberal as well in the US. Maybe Fire, maybe you can try to
Yeah,
answer the second part of the question.
yeah. So for
Yeah.
the US, college campuses in general, they have a lot of security and safety. They have like police boxes at every street. You can just press a button and you can get someone to like walk you home and stuff at night. Um, so they have a lot of safety incorporated in that. The only thing I would warn you about is if you you plan to go to like UCLA, which is in downtown in the city, um, it can get kind of unsafe because the city, the campus is the city basically. So whatever you're gonna be living in, like you're gonna be living in the city, and you probably know like in the cities there's more crime rates and there's more like drug use and stuff like that. So if you really wanna if you wanna be in a safe place, you can go to like a college campus town, like a smaller town, which is not a big massive city like Chicago or LA or New York, stuff like that. But in general, um, they have security measures in place, and I don't think you should really be worried about it. It's not like what they show on the news and stuff. It's trust me, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Um, for the next question, US college question. How do I research what colleges you need to apply to? What resources do you use? I think Google is your best friend, honestly. Personally, I used Reddit a lot. when trying to find resources. There's a lot of subreddits like applying to college or into the USA. There's a few more. These actually are good resources which you can use. You can use Google as well. There is a site called College Confidential, which is less useful, but it is also another forum which you can look at. I think US university college websites are also another good resource. Articles, yeah, everything you can just Google, research, and make the groundwork work. I think talking to a lot of current students, a lot of alumni of those schools, is also another good way to research what colleges, what unis, what where you can apply to. Just gaining a lot of insight, talking to like fellow applicants, which you can do it on Reddit, on Discord, on there's like a few other apps. Even like talking to other applicants or current students or alumni, those are other ways you can actually do research on the institutions.
Yeah, I would agree
For
with
the
that.
next question, yes, yes. For the next question, can I ask for a letter of recommendation from my school's previous headmistress? She seems to like me a lot. The current one has literally no idea. I mean, you could do this, provided as long as it's not a counselor report, if it's like a teacher letter of recommendation, and if the previous headmistress kind of like taught you or mentored you in a way, she could write a letter of recommendation. Yeah,
I would
but
say
it
it
might
also
not. It might
depends.
need to.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it also depends on how long ago it was. If it was like recent, if the previous person left recently, then it's fine. But if the previous person left like 3 4 years ago, then I would say no. It should
Yeah, I
basically be like
believe it
during your
must
high
be like
school.
around. Yeah, around 1 to 2 years before you apply is like the best. And if it's like, so if you're applying at like 12th or year 10, year 12, year 13 or something, then the headmistress was at like grade 9th, that's like a gap. So it's not really recommended if it's like that.
Okay, so if I'll take the next question.
The next,
So it was about
yeah,
taking care
sure.
of a sibling as an extracurricular. So when you're applying to the US on the Common App, um there's a field to choose the activity type, and under in the type you can choose like academic, athletic, uh environmental, debate, stuff like that. One of the fields is family responsibilities, so that's what you would select when you are talking about taking care of a sibling.
Mm. Okay, for the next question, I understand if you meet the uni requirement, you get an offer letter. That is for Australia and for UK, for Canada. For US, it's not just that. Um, but how do we know we get a scholarship, or how do we apply for the scholarship? For Australia, we kind of mentioned it, and the same thing for US. I think we covered it sufficiently in our slides. So it's more of for the US, you need to apply for it for, and for Australia, you can actually apply for it after you get the offer. And for
Yeah,
the US, there's more automatic scholarships also. Yeah.
yeah. For the US, I would say apply early action because you have a higher chance of getting scholarships, and you're always automatically considered for merit-based scholarships if you apply early action.
Hmm. For the next question, to get into medical university, if you don't actually have your IGCSEs but your English level suffices, would that be enough? That would honestly depend on which universities you actually apply for. So you would, I think it's better if you like speak to the universities in question, maybe try to figure out if you have like an IGCSE equivalent qualification, they would actually take that plus your A levels. But you will need to check with the universities you're interested in and the countries as well. For the next question, as a CS student, what extracurriculars should I have? I think we did cover it in some detail.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. For the next question, do IGCSE results really count? Because most unis only have A level requirements. For the UK, your A levels matter a lot more. For the US, they tend to look at both, but they will still look at the more recent qualification, which is your A level. So I would actually argue that A levels are a lot more important. But IGCSE, if good IGCSE results will help supplement your application in a positive way. For the next question, is it advisable to do IT and CS as A-level subjects? If you want to take CS pathway, I think computer science is good. You could take IT, but I think combining it with maths is good because for a computer science degree, maths is kind of like an essential subject. You don't actually need a computer science A level, but you choose to take it. The next question is 4A for A2 realistic? And will these grades likely bring me scholarships in US and UK as long as other requirements are achieved? What is the likely amount of scholarship I would receive in dollars? And is 7 IGCSE going to impact my applications in any way? Okay, 4A for A2 is whether or not it's realistic, it's up to you to determine. It really depends on your performance. These grades is good, so you are academically competitive for a lot of UK and US schools. There are no requirements. There is no like specific entry requirements for the US, but there are other expectations that they would have. For the UK, yes, there are requirements. So you are academically competitive. You get 4As. The likely amount of scholarship in dollars would depend on the university you apply to. And if you're applying for financial aid as well, it really depends on how much is the uh, cost of attendance for that university and how much aid that you might get. It really depends on the uni or the college. 7 IGCSEs is sufficient and your grades are okay. Even if you get a couple of Bs, I think it's still okay, just that your A levels need to be like good. Then it really depends on where you apply and how you do present yourself in the application. For the next question, any good recommendations for unis in the USA for engineering with decent fees? I think it's more of a general question. Decent fees, it will really depend on your budget. So I don't think we can give any sort of specific recommendations, but maybe Farah can give a few good unis for engineering if you can.
So when you say decent fees, it's complicated because it kind of depends on
Yes.
your academics. Because if you score well in academics, some universities give these merit-based scholarships more easily than others. So if they're like lower ranked, and you have a good academic standing, they would give you more scholarship payout. So it completely depends. It's like a trade-off between prestige and fees, kind of, if in a way. And this is for public schools and for like not the Ivies, but in the Ivies it's completely different. So if you want in general, if you want recommendations for engineering, um the one I'm in, UIUC, is a good one. It's ranked pretty high. You can just go on Google and search up like engineering, um, top engineering programs in the US. You'll find a list.
Yeah, I think a lot of state schools, a lot of public unis are good for engineering in the US. If you're looking at decent fees, I think lower fees, I think there's a lot of public state unis in the Midwest and in the South, which is a lot more maybe affordable. And the quality of education is still pretty decent. But maybe ranking, it might not be there, but you will still get that college experience, definitely. So a lot of state schools, a lot of public schools, I think good for STEM and engineering fields. I think Iowa State, Iowa is actually quite good. The Midwest and South are places you can look at, from what I've heard. Um, for the next question, does the ranking of universities really matter for jobs? I think this will really depend on the degree, types of jobs that you're looking to target. Fire, do you have any knowledge of this?
I mean, I would say yes and no. Yes in a way because obviously if you have like a degree from a prestigious school, that will look a lot better on your resume than like a general school. But then on the other hand, a degree is a degree, and if you've earned that degree, that's pretty much what they care about. So if you're going in for a job in a aerospace um an aerospace field, they would look for someone with an aerospace degree. But then eventually, if you've earned an aerospace degree from like a high ranking university, they would probably prefer that. So it depends on the employer.
I think we have come to our last question, which is what extracurricular activities is recommended for a psychology degree? Now, neither of us are doing psychology, so maybe we could flag this question and maybe address it in later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have come to the end of the of the questions which have been sent in advance. Uh, I don't believe we have time for any live questions, or would you like to continue with some live
No, I
questions?
think they can just ask us in the channel and we can answer it like when we're free.
Yes, I think that would be better, and we can address the questions in the chat directly as well.
All right,
So
thanks
thank you all,
everyone for
guys. Yes. So thank you all. Sorry. Thank you all, guys, for attending the event. We'll share the recording soon in our resource updates channel, and we wish you the best of luck in everything.
All right, bye guys.
Okay. Bye bye. Okay. I'll end the stage. Oh no, you can end the stage. So thank
Okay.
you, everyone.